Thank you, dear Mark. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it's a great pleasure to be the host because, this first panel of this very important symposium takes place in the headquarters of the Italian Society for International Organization. I'm very proud to be the president of this important organization that maybe, organizes and supervises and coordinates training courses for Italian diplomats, for those who aspire to become diplomats, and for foreign diplomats that are being trained in Italy. We organize here a number of master training courses in different topics. And of course, the idea of starting this afternoon, this very important symposium where Mark talked about that for the first time, I was extremely happy to say headquarters of COI is available to host you today and in the next days of this 3 days symposium. Also during my institutional career, I've been working really with the conviction that only through mutual understanding and dialogue between cultures and religions we can succeed on addressing together common challenges. And this is why I will be speaking today, this afternoon, about what I think is not only a challenge, but what is a moral duty for the human beings. I will be speaking about the spiritual dimension in the globalized world. Very often, we talk just about euro, financial unions, common economic agreements. We tend to forget the spiritual dimension of our societies. This is why this is a topic which is particularly close to my heart. This is why I propose to speak about that. I'll be more than happy, Mark, dear friends, to answer eventually to your questions about my speech. As I said, ladies and gentlemen, it is a personal pleasure to be here and also to talk once again about a topic which is extremely important for the human society as a whole. I believe it is worth opening a lively intercultural dialogue. This is the spiritual dimension in the era of globalization. I'm speaking to you this afternoon in the same spirit that has always inspired Italian foreign policy on these questions, not only when I was foreign minister, but all my predecessors and successors have been inspiring Italian foreign policy to the full priority of intercultural and interreligious dialogue. There is a continuity, fortunately, on that. This is the awareness that it is only through open debate and the dissemination of different points of view that we will be able first to understand each other. And mutual understanding is the precondition to talk about international affairs. Second, to appreciate the progress which is promoted by so many governments in this respect. And third, to abandon certain all too deeply rooted stereotypes. This is not a question of delivering lessons. This is a question of discussing very important issues that, for all those who truly care about global progress and stability, are of central importance in today's world. We are living through a period of history marked by deep change and growing uncertainties. The end of the Cold War increased our perception of insecurity, added to the range of actors on the multilateral stage, and it redefined the hierarchy of international power. A world as interconnected as ours is a world that calls upon each of us, states, citizens, organized groups in civil society, to become more engaged, to take on more responsibility to safeguard peace and harmonious coexistence. Each of us must necessarily have a direct interest in the well-being of the others, which in turn will have repercussions for the stability of each and every one of us. The positive and negative contagion of crisis spreads very quickly, and these crises project their efforts over a very broad range and with repercussions that can set off chain reactions. The recent economic financial crisis demonstrated these all too clearly. But the destinies of our humanity are at stake. If we think of growing poverty and desperation, climate change, environment degradation, or conflict and post-conflict situations where too often the largest number of victims is represented by the poorer and the weaker, first of all, women and children. Ladies and gentlemen, in this international scenario I mentioned earlier, the peoples of the world are feeling a more intense need to reaffirm their cultural identities and to seek to become members of and identify with movements defined under rigid and exclusive criteria. The return in many countries of the world to traditional cultural customs, often in their most orthodox forms, seems to represent a shield against a modernization that is wrongly perceived as being imposed by the West and stigmatized as being fraught with danger. Against this background, we are witnessing a new protagonism of the spiritual component, which has carved out a growing space for itself in today's society, but has in some cases taken on extremist forms. In the collective imagination, the perception now prevails that the religion factor inspires sometimes conflicts, fundamentalist movements, or tensions in so many regions of the world. On all sides, and for too long, people have been fanning the flame of hateful theories concerning the clash of religions, the clash between civilizations, or between the West and Islam. Such theories offend both the truth and our fundamental values. How can it be possible that religious observance has grown to be the source of conflict par excellence? How is it possible? And What can we together do to once again build upon the enormous positive potential of the great religious traditions? This is a very difficult question. These traditions are a key element in achieving a better knowledge and understanding of the world and its dynamics. They can and they must once again play their part in the quest for peace, not in promoting conflicts. They can influence the way that leaders and peoples view these issues. They can encourage different forms of social organization and cooperation. We are living at a time when it is very urgent to mend the global fracture between, on the one hand, an open and tolerant conception of human coexistence, and on the other, totalitarian pressures that are reluctant to accept the diversity that it is inherent to our world. This is why recourse to spiritual dimension offers to us a very strong instrument for dialogue and mutual understanding at international level, naturally, but also at the national level. All the governments should battle on all fronts to defend freedom of religion, understood in its broadest sense as the right to profess a religion and to manifest one's faith in public. It is for us the heart of civil coexistence, the individual right in itself, but it is also a guarantee of a society's founding values, since the religious dimension encompasses both the individual's intimate relationship with God and the drive to create a community with others. Religious freedom is a cardinal principle of our civilization, one that is sanctioned by the Italian Constitution, as you know. It is one of the founding principles of the European project. It is reiterated by numerous international instruments that are, to me, the cornerstones of the international system for the protection of human rights. To mention just two: the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948, which the Organization of the Islamic Conference recently recognized as having the value of international customary law, and secondly, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, 1966. It worries us to witness so regularly violent situations where this right, freedom of religion, is attacked. Cruel attacks on religious minorities, force practices against those not belonging to the faith of the majority, or more sophisticated forms of discrimination and marginalization on the cultural level and in the participation in public, civil, and political life. This is why the Italian initiatives in the past years for religious freedom arose from the persecution and blood-stained events that have followed on one from the other. These episodes should be addressed and opposed, not least to foster a better understanding of the Islamic world and its presence in Europe. We are, each of us, called, therefore, to help prevent and avert all the cases of intolerance through the only two tools that are truly effective: dialogue and multilateralism. It is the world of politics that is called upon, first of all, to do so. At the national level, it is the leaders who must provide solutions for the problems of multi-ethnic coexistence without losing sight of the sensitivities at stake. And at the international level, states have the task of working together with conviction in all those fora that have been created to foster dialogue, to bring cultures closer together, and to ensure that the full weight of religion is brought to bear both in crisis prevention and in resolving conflicts. Conflicts and crises that today, more than ever, require a multidimensional response. But in the quest for a new social and interfaith harmony, we also place our trust in religious groups and leaders, who, more than they, can lay the groundwork for a dialogue based on the deepest values, on mankind and solidarities, values that are common to all the religions. This is the duty of religious leaders. Who better than they can build on the potential, on the spiritual dimension in the quest for international stability and sustainable development? Finally, coexistence is also a challenge for civil society, for students, for associations, for all of that fabric that makes up society and has the power to influence policy and make its voice heard with true courage. And this is why it's very important that today this symposium take place. And my final point, since I'm speaking to men and women whose spiritual pathway is different in many cases from that on my own cultural tradition, I would like to conclude by highlighting few points. I'm of the spirit, in doing so, of great sincerity, in the hope that our views might coincide on certain fundamental principles. The first principle that I wish to underscore before you is that religion cannot be instrumentalized to justify violations or abuses on human rights, including the right of full religious freedom. We should, dear friends, all loudly proclaim that whoever kills or injures a human being by naming God commits the worst blasphemy. This should be a principle uniting all of us. The second principle I would like to leave with you to reflect upon is that coexistence between peoples or between the citizens of any one country must aim to develop a sense that we all belong to a society and to humanity. No one, no matter where in the world, can kill or strike another human being in the name of God. Anyone who does so betrays the principle of their religion. great religious traditions bear a message of peace and respect for others, not one of conflict and violence. I wish to entrust this message to you, being sure that you will continue to be inspired by those values of dialogue, coexistence, and mutual understanding that are inherent to the religious dimension of any religion, with no difference. Only the triumph of these values will enable us to establish a truly democratic global society and guarantee and protect peace and security of our world against all manifestations of extremism and fanaticism. This is why reiterating and repeating and stressing only through feeling that we all are human beings, and this is why our spirituality should be a priority. Only through that principle we will succeed together. Thank you very much.